Most people fail at fat loss not because they don't know what to eat, but because they try to be perfect. They jump into strict diets, cut out everything they enjoy, and then feel guilty the moment they slip. But what if fat loss didn't require perfection at all? What if eating smart mattered far more than eating flawlessly? That's where the 80-20th rule changes everything. It's not a diet, it's a strategy. It's a mindset shift that makes fat loss realistic, enjoyable, and sustainable. And today, I'm going to break down how the 80-20th rule works, why it works, and how it can completely transform the way you approach fat loss forever. The 80-20th rule for fat loss means this: 80% of your diet should come from nutrient-dense, whole foods that support your goals, and 20% can be flexible, enjoyable, and imperfect. You don't need to eliminate chocolate, stop drinking chai, or avoid going out with friends. You just need to build a foundation of foods that fuel your body, and then allow space for the foods that feed your soul. This balance is what creates consistency. And consistency is what creates results. Think about it this way. If you eat 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals a week. If 17 of those meals are clean, nutrient-rich, high-protein, balanced meals, and the remaining 4 meals are flexible, you will still lose fat. You will still make progress. You will still create a calorie deficit without feeling restricted. The problem is that most people fail because they think fat loss is all or nothing. So the moment they break the diet once, they give up completely. The 80-20th rule removes that guilt. It reminds you that you don't need perfection, just direction. But let's go deeper. Why does the 80-20th rule work so well? Because humans are emotional eaters. Food is comfort, tradition, pleasure, connection, and sometimes even stress relief. If you try to remove all comfort and joy from your diet, your brain rebels. Your cravings intensify. Your willpower collapses. And you end up binging harder than you ever ate before the diet. The 80-20th rule allows your brain to relax. It tells your mind, nothing is forbidden, and when nothing is forbidden, food loses its power over you. That psychological flexibility is what makes this approach sustainable. Now let's talk about the 80%, the foundation foods. These are foods that support fat loss effortlessly. High protein, high volume, low calorie, nutrient-dense meals. When you focus on whole foods like lean meats, eggs, yogurt, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats, something magical happens. Your hunger levels drop naturally. You stay full longer. You crave less junk. And you stop overeating without forcing yourself. That's the beauty of eating smart. You eat foods that support your goals automatically. The next piece of the 80-20th rule is portion control. When 80% of your meals are high volume and nutrient dense, portions naturally regulate themselves because your stomach gets full before you exceed your calorie needs. But in the 20% flexible portion control requires awareness. The point of 20% is not to binge, it's to enjoy moderate indulgences without guilt. Think of it like adding a small dessert after dinner, enjoying weekend pizza, or having biryani once a week without feeling like you ruined everything. One of the biggest advantages of the 80-20th rule is the flexibility it gives you when life gets busy. Fat loss doesn't require you to cook every meal at home. If you're out with friends or you're at a family gathering and you can't control the menu, don't panic. Just treat that meal as part of your 20%. And then continue your normal healthy eating with the next meal. Most people destroy their progress because they overreact to one imperfect meal. The 80-20th rule teaches you that one meal cannot ruin your diet, only quitting can. And here's something powerful. When you give yourself permission to enjoy food, the overeating stops. Because restriction creates obsession. But balance creates freedom. And freedom creates consistency. It's the people who stress the least about food who usually make the best progress. Let's look at an example of a day using the 80-20th rule. Breakfast: eggs, oats, fruit. Lunch: chicken or paneer bowl with rice and veggies. Dinner: a balanced home-cooked meal. And at night? Maybe a chocolate bar, ice cream, or whatever you enjoy, guilt-free. That small bit of flexibility prevents burnout. It keeps your diet enjoyable. And enjoyment is the most overlooked fat loss strategy in the world. Now here's where the 80-20th rule becomes even more powerful. When you start eating 80% whole foods, your cravings begin to fade naturally. Over time, you start craving healthier foods without forcing yourself. That's when fat loss becomes effortless. You're no longer fighting your body, you're working with it. But let's address the common fear. What if my 20% becomes 40%? It won't if you plan it. The purpose of the 80-20th rule is not randomness, it's intentional flexibility. You must choose where your 20% goes. Maybe it's your favorite dessert. Maybe it's dinner out on Friday. Maybe it's your Sunday cheat meal. When you plan your 20%, you control it. When you don't plan it, it controls you. And here's the truth. Fat loss is not about eating clean all the time. It's about creating a calorie deficit consistently. The 80-20th rule supports the deficit without destroying your lifestyle. You don't need a perfect diet. You need a repeatable diet. If you can repeat it for months, you will lose fat. If you can't repeat it, you will quit. The final piece of the 80-20th strategy is psychological freedom. When you no longer fear food, you stop sabotaging yourself. You stop punishing yourself. And you stop binge-restrict cycles that destroy long-term progress. The 80-20th rule teaches you to eat like an adult, with balance, intention, and maturity. And that's how real fat loss happens. Not through perfection. Through consistency.